All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And greetings, everyone. I'm in Washington, D.C. It is a pleasure to have you with us. We have everybody on board. We're just coming from slightly different locations today. As I say, I'm in Hawaii. This is the bed I slept in last night.
Yeah. How was that? Was that comfy?
It's not the bed's fault. I'm jet lagged and I couldn't get to sleep. You know, I'm a mess, man. I'm on no sleep at all. But it's no fault of the accommodations.
Bed today. Did you not make the bed for us?
I never make the bed, so this is pretty much the way it looks all the time. This is it.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Yeah. On behalf of me and everyone in the chat.
Cheat, 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 cheat. Make the bed. Cheat, cheat, cheat. Shut the marky mouth and make the bed. Kim is close to leaving this show once she gets momentum on her new show. Yeah, it's much harder than it looks, Kim. That's all I have to say to you. Congratulations on your new show.
I'll never leave this show. I just can't do it. I can't.
When do you think you're going to almost pay no attention to this show and be completely focused on your own? How many months into your new enterprise do you think it'll be?
What the question is, how will you handle life without me? Really?
No, I would be downcast about it. No, I'd be bummed. I think you're great. So
who's going to make sure you know when to speak and when you don't?
Who's gonna
keep you in line, my friend.
I really do adore you, and I think it would be
not going anywhere.
It would be rough.
Stand right here.
And I'll miss you. That's all I have to say. So good luck with your new show. We've gotten you almost to the and I can just say to start this show in terms of getting you subscribers to your new show, you had to make the 1,000 subscriber threshold. I don't know where you are now. I'm sure
889.
Yeah, so that's all because of this show, and all I have to just say is you're welcome. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for recognizing. I'm sure on your opening show you'll recognize how important we were in getting you there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe you'll be one of those people who, totally forgets the people who supported them.
No.
Albert.
Sayonara, sucker!
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of sayonara, sucker in our future. Today, I do want to tell you, though, we have some great stuff on the show. John Rothman, a fan favorite. He'll weigh in on politics of all sorts. I suppose the thing that's happening politically, and it's tough to have the name Biden with this administration in power and not have anything that relates to you be political, and that's what's happening with the Hunter Biden case. At any moment, he's supposed to formalize that plea agreement, which I'd thought was done. That cake was baked, but apparently it's not baked, and the plea deal is in jeopardy based on what I'm seeing, Kim. It's literally minute to minute, so those negotiations are going on now.
I guess they don't like that the gun charge is tied to the tax charges. They thought those should be separated out, is what the judge is looking at. So,
I do have a bowling with Biden later this half hour, and I'm sure Jon Rothman will weigh in on the Biden thing as well. But my bowling with Biden does speak to what I think is a disturbing trend both within government and around the executive branch. I mean, my God, Donald Trump was hip deep in conflicts of interest. It was crazy. It was like his administration was a monument to conflict of interest, right? He's making deals to Trump is making deals to try to host the G7 summit at the Trump properties. It was one of the first things he did. You heard it at press conferences. That's where I think we got that drop Saudi Arabia pays cash, but he was, essentially trying to woo leaders of other countries to come to Doral or wherever he wanted to have it at one of the Trump properties. And of course, his hotel was essentially just an open bank account,
right?
Into which the Saudis and many other foreign dignitaries and foreign powers poured money. Yeah.
Didn't he even force the Secret Service members to stay there when they needed a place to stay?
That was built. It's still happening. It's still happening.
What?
Well, we still have Secret Service protection for Trump and the family. I think the Trump family Secret Service protection expires after 6 months. But the immediate Trump family, I think it continues on an ongoing basis. In any case, he deliberately makes plans at other Trump properties. And what happens is, just because we're on this, and then I want to get off, there's some other much bigger stuff going on, but it is kind of a weird scam, and it's truly a grift. It's kind of clever. The way the Secret Service works is, if the president, or whomever they're protecting, in this case it's the president, a former president, indicates he may go somewhere, the Secret Service has to secure rooms, lodging, and arrangements, logistical arrangements, in wherever in whatever location he may go. So what you end up having is Secret Service booking rooms in many different Trump properties, multiple Trump properties, because Trump has indicated he may go there. He might go to New Jersey. Now, he might go to Ireland or wherever he's got the other property. He might go back to Mar-a-Lago. So you end up with Secret Service booking rooms. And what happens when you don't cancel rooms in time? You get charged for it. And as you know, Trump gave the U.S. taxpayer no discount. And so we were paying the full freight. And that's what the situation continues to be. It's a great grift. So he's an ongoing way of getting money in from the Secret Service and the American taxpayer at different Trump properties. So that's the way that grift works. Hey, smash the like button. If you will, do it now. Get it out of the way. It helps us. It's free. And,
receive the rod.
No. Oh, by the way, I had a question. Have we given John Rothman the rod of equity and mercy? Do you recall?
No, I don't remember. No.
Okay.
I think we might have to do that today.
Well, I don't have the rod with me, but I was equipped, I believe, with a
travel rod.
A travel rod, exactly.
What?
Yeah. It is a.
It's like a to-go rod. You know?
Yeah. So what will happen with John Rothman? He'll be joining us a little bit after 10:30 Pacific time. Is I'll give him the rod of equity and mercy, and I'll bestow it upon him with the travel rod. But he will require an actual bestowment. That's a word of the rod of equity and mercy by the actual. Rod of equity and mercy when I get back to California.
Right.
So it's a two-step process. This will tide him over. It's actually got like a 30-day thing, so it could take, but after 30 days, it does well. As you know, if you receive it, the rod of equity and mercy from the actual rod, as many of you have, if you're a Patreon supporter or a PayPal supporter, sometimes as a result of contributions through super chats and super stickers, I will bestow the rod. That is good for life. You'd never have to have any kind of booster bestowment. You get it for life.
It's like that 30-day free trial that you forget about, and then you're paying monthly installments for.
Thank you.
That doesn't apply for those original bestowments.
Precisely, exactly. Very well put, producer Albert. Well done. I do want to mention in the next hour. I mentioned Rothman in this hour. In the next hour, there is a brewing. I think it's a scandal that you're going to hear about that you haven't heard about. I mean, you haven't heard about it on NBC, CBS, ABC, no major news organizations. And honestly, I haven't seen alt news organizations reporting on it either. I mean, it's almost literally going to be reported here for the first time.
Ooh, breaking news.
And it's so big that it'll make your head explode. And that'll be in the 11 o'clock hour.
Are we going to play major announcement? And do we have a breaking news banner? Do we have no?
No, maybe you can get that for your news show. Kim.
I'll work it.
Major announcement from the Mark
you.
Thompson Show.
We don't run major announcement stuff, Kim, on this show. I don't know how you're going to be doing it on your show, unless it's related to an announcement, not from the news so much. It's more related to a major announcement about the show or something.
Got it.
So in this case, I will, though, because Albert did play that, I will mention that this show will begin an hour later, starting next Tuesday, August 1st. So next Tuesday, August 1st, this show will begin at 11. And not 10 Pacific time. You see, if you're watching on YouTube, those are all the shows in this time change lineup that you might watch. many people who watch this show also watch the Nikki Maduro show, which follows. But now she's going to go from 9 to 11 Pacific time. All times are Pacific. Then I will come on at 11 a.m. Pacific time, go until 1 o'clock. And then at 1 o'clock, a new show. That's the one I've been talking about with Kim. The Kim McAllister show is called The After Party. And you can subscribe at the After Party Live. That'll be from 1 until 2. So, that's the latest on that. As far as major announcements go, I think that does qualify. Albert, if you can sting me, I want to get to a major story that is not political.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The ocean currents are changing now, in addition to the massive changes in the atmosphere. And the ocean temperatures are reaching levels that, A, we've never seen before, but B, could lead to a catastrophic collapse in ocean ecosystems and habitats. And, the oceans die and we die. It's one more marker of the planet's health at the moment. Here is a bit of what's going on. This was the news report in Florida, just to give you a sense of how intense it is. Go ahead, Albert, please.
All right, so I want to spend some time talking about something absolutely remarkable that happened just south of our community just a few hours ago in the Florida Keys, and it revolves around the incredibly warm water temperatures that surround the Florida Peninsula. Now, there's a number of buoys all across the Florida Keys, but at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, the buoy at Murray Key measured a sea surface temperature just less than 5 feet below the ocean surface of 99.3 degrees. Now, as if that wasn't incredible enough, a few hours later, a separate buoy in Manatee Bay, which is a little closer to the Key Largo area, measured a jaw-dropping figure of 101.1 degrees. Now, if this verifies, and I'm sure they're going to critique the numbers quite a bit in the next 24 hours, but if that verifies, that would set a new world record for the warmest sea surface temperature that's ever been observed by humans, and it would break the current record of 99.7 degrees that was observed in Kuwait Bay in the Persian Gulf in the Middle East. So this is really quite incredible. Now, for some perspective, the water temperature averages in this part of the Florida Keys during the month of July only average in the mid and upper 80s. So the fact that we have water temperatures now that are at or above 100 in parts of the Florida Keys is just astonishing. And it's not only in the Florida Keys where water temperatures are running way above average. This is a water temperature anomaly map. So the darker the red, the higher the temperatures are above average for today's date. And they are exceptionally warm across the northern Atlantic. There's only one small swath of the ocean right now where temperatures are below average. And that's because that's where Hurricane Don was swirling for the past couple of days. So it pulled up some cooler water from deeper in the
Albert,
ocean,
thank you. That's good. But that'll give you that's just a snapshot of what we're seeing. So we're seeing it off.
Scary.
Yeah. So a new study that was published yesterday in the journal Nature found that this Atlantic meridional overturning current, it's part the Gulf Stream is part of that. It could collapse as early as 2025, but certainly by the middle of the century, based on these projections.
Are they saying that the ocean currents are related to the ocean temperature? So when as the temperature changes, the way the water flows changes?
Yes, because it has to also do with water density. I mean, as you know, the colder water tends to sink to the bottom. I think I believe that's the case. So I think that there's, in addition to temperature, there's density that's affected by temperature. I may be wrong about that, but I think that that's right. But in any case, these currents are very much affected by temperature changes and by apparently these trends in changes as far as glacial melt is concerned and some of the other things that are affecting temperature. They have They say the results, scientists do, the results of temperatures and looking at this system of currents, that is, the results are alarming, provide new evidence that the tipping point could occur sooner than previously thought. This is a complex tangle of currents, as they put it, that works like a giant global conveyor belt, transports warm water from the tropics toward the North Atlantic, where the water cools, becomes saltier, and sinks deep into the ocean before spreading southward. Plays a crucial role in the climate system, helping regulate global weather patterns. Its collapse would have enormous implications, including much more extreme winters and sea level rises affecting parts of Europe and the U.S. Also shifting monsoon seasons in the tropics. For years, scientists have been warning of its instability as the climate crisis accelerates. This whole thing can upset the balance of temperature and salinity, and these currents depend on those things. As the oceans heat up, ice melts, more fresh water, this is what I was talking about, flows into the ocean and reduces the water's density, making it less able to sink. When waters become too fresh, too warm, or both, the conveyor belt stops. This happened before. More than 12,000 years ago, rapid glacier melt caused this system of currents to shut down, leading to huge northern hemisphere temperature fluctuations, 18 to 27 degrees Fahrenheit fluctuations within a decade. A shutdown would affect every person on the planet. It's that big and important, said the president of the Oceanographic Institute, who authored the study. So this is a sign, yet another sign. We'll talk about this a little bit more with Belinda tomorrow, but I just felt it was such big news, I could not let it go. So that's that. Albert?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah. Got a lot of Trump news, too. I got Trump news and a little offbeat news. And I've got that bowling with Biden. Where are we on time? Okay. They're cranking up a impeachment thing they want to do with Biden. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back on that. McCarthy seems to, lean in when it's politically expedient for him to lean in and, take a step back when it's a little, it seems too impolitic to perhaps suggest that Biden should be part of an inquiry. I don't know why you can't get whatever inquiry you need done in all your congressional committees, about the Justice Department, at which, you're at the Congressional Committee on the Justice Department and Weaponization, at which Biden is being mentioned every 2 seconds. But let's do it. Albert, can we do a bowling with Biden? I'll give you a little Joe Biden stuff. Do you have
I got it open.
Live from KGO Lanes, it's Bowling with Biden.
It's go time!
This man's going to win a lot of political offices.
Now, here's your Bowling with Biden host, Mark Thompson.
Well, let's start with the impeachment, and I'll get to, once I turn Rothman loose, I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about this. But Speaker Kevin McCarthy has sort of warmed to the idea of impeaching Joe Biden. They suggest that if they're going to go for Joe Biden, they ought to really go for him. They might as well go for the highest target, is the thinking, as opposed to what was talked about, which is essentially you impeach everybody. You impeach, Director of Homeland Security, the head of the FBI. Literally, they were talking about dragging everybody in and essentially blasting them with an impeachment proceeding. That's what the plan of Marjorie Taylor Greene was, for example, okay? And McCarthy, whose sources say has also been consulting with former House GOP Speaker Newt Gingrich on the issue. Newt Gingrich, who is perhaps the devil's spawn of all of this partisan politics in Washington, and one of the reasons that nothing gets done anymore in any real sort of bipartisan way. He's warm to the idea that has long been relegated to the fringes of his conference. Relegated is certainly a ding word. This week, he delivered his most explicit threat yet to the president, saying that their investigations into the Biden family's deals appear to be rising to the level of an impeachment inquiry. Again, I would say this as an aside, you never know how much of this is done for political reasons and to sort of throw a bone to this crazy right-wing group that has seized control of the GOP, and how much of it is serious that McCarthy really intends to try to bring this forward.
I wonder did this all start with the Clinton administration, this using the impeachment process for, as a political football? Because it used to be when someone was impeached, it was serious business. Like, it wasn't just political, there was teeth there, and it was, something that would go down as a blot on your record in history. Now it's just seems like, well, who isn't impeached? Right.
I think you're right that the bar for impeaching has been lowered, and now it seems as though there's a lot of there's a political exercise behind it. But I'd suggest that you couldn't get impeachment off the launch pad. I want to say that they were talking about trying to impeach. I don't know. I was gonna say over Benghazi, and that might be wrong though. But I think you make a good point that it's sort of now on a level that we just haven't seen before when it comes to the utter politicization of this. So look, they're trying to dirty up the Biden family, calling it the Biden crime family, trying to draw a line between Hunter Biden, who's clearly a troubled guy, has been a troubled guy, drug addicted, and all the rest. He'd be an eye roll kind of guy. By the way, but a lot of people are addicted to drugs, and they kick drugs, and they have decent, productive lives. Being a drug addict isn't the end of the line. And I think the most damning part of the Hunter Biden tale, I suppose you could pick all kinds of things that, and you can, I'm not a finger wagger on anything when it comes to many ways in which people lead their lives. But one of the things that bothers me is the legitimate way in which people can make money off their names in Washington. Now, in the Donald Trump administration, you saw people right there at the White House. That is just an extraordinary thing.
They weren't even trying to hide it.
It was pay to play, baby. And, you had the two Trump brothers, there circling dad. Then you had Jared and Ivanka and so on. It was a real,
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, a rogues gallery of grift. Okay. But that said, and the reason I'm doing this story is to tell you that, hey, man, it's not cool on the Democratic side either. And it's not cool for Hunter to be on the Burisma board. We already talked about this on KGO. I did tons and tons on this, that I don't approve. It sucks. It's awful. It should be illegal. But when you have the name and you have access, you do get money. You get appointed to boards, you get to consultancies, you get all sorts of things that accrue to you because your name is Biden. And that's what happened with Hunter. Now, let me get to what I think is the bribery scheme. I think is thin, man. I just don't believe that this is kind of what the Republicans are talking about. And I just think it's way thin based on everything I've read. They're trying to cobble together something where it makes it look like Joe is leaning in with Hunter as his proxy. It's just kind of absurd. So I don't buy that. But I do buy the way that Hunter's art was purchased by many people who might have been trying to curry favor with the Biden administration. In addition to everything else, Hunter is an artist. And I talked about this before. And it's a grift. I think it's a grift that this new artist is all of a sudden selling his art for huge money. So if you want to dump on something, you can dump on that. Now, again, it's not illegal. It's a legal grift. And now let me tell you about the part of the art sale that matches up with something that you're going to recognize, but not like in the Trump administration. there is reporting that at least one of the buyers of Hunter's artwork was a major Democratic donor who Joe Biden ended up appointing to a prestigious commission. Now, that begins to run up against what I consider unethical, and, if you can prove it, there is certainly the appearance of impropriety. Okay, I don't know that, it isn't indeed improprietous, but it has that appearance. Now, improprietous is a ding word, by the way, Albert. The way it matches up with the Trump administration, a lot of things that we've seen, and this is a new trend, is what do they do with the Trump books? The kids wrote books, right? Did Don Jr. wrote a book? Or
all of them wrote books, right?
They all wrote books, and they were all on the New York Times #1 bestseller list or in the top 5 or whatever it was. And why was that? Because the Republican National Committee bought the Trump Jr. book in such bulk numbers, and they bought those books oftentimes with money that might have traced back to campaign money. So you can really begin to see how twisted everything is. So all those emails they sent out saying, we need money, and people pledge $5, $10, all the MAGA people, throw in, they did everything from throwing in money to support the wall, to support Donald Trump's legal fees, to just supporting the MAGA cause. That money, some of it, or RNC money, was involved in buying up the Trump books. We talked about this when I was on KGO. So you see, when I get back to the Hunter situation, when his art is purchased at huge inflated prices by Democratic hopefuls, Democratic donors who are powerful within the party, you see it quacks a little like the same thing. And again, we're in a situation where that's just the way the country is set up. It's not cool. It should be illegal, but it does happen. I think they are off the rails, the GOP, with this jihad they are on against Biden. It proves that party really isn't about anything. All they're doing is pursuing these political recriminatory hearings and trying to now tag Biden with an impeachment. It's wrong. And it's absurd, but there is this uncomfortable fact in Washington. I put it in the same category as sort of the insider trading that Congress people can do. It's not insider trading, but it's trading on information that others don't have. So in a sense, it might be. And so that's, I think, an ugly part of Washington politics that does need to be addressed. And that's what's going on with the Hunter Biden story. Again, the appearance at minimum of impropriety when his artwork is sold for multiples of what it would fetch on the open market, and the buyer is a huge Democratic donor. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think we should ding impropriety.
All right. Well, nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I like getting called for the ding. It's very strong. Look, I don't know what his art should be getting, but strikes me as something of a hobby. And hobbyists usually don't get, $500,000 for a piece of art, which is exactly what he did get. Seems a little ridiculous, doesn't it? All right, that's your Bowling with Biden.
That's all for this edition.
There's your new later.
But join us again next time for Bowling with Biden.
Let's talk to John Rothman about that, among other things, and about this Biden, the realities of this Biden ridiculous impeachment proceeding that they might get underway. When we come back, it is Jon Rothman. He'll talk about all things related to politics, Washington, and in the 11 o'clock hour, 11 o'clock Pacific time, we'll talk to one of the world's leading logistics experts about an emerging security threat that you haven't heard about, but need to. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and as Mark was talking about, Hunter Biden really leading the news today. His plea deal and his tax evasion case appears to be in jeopardy. Prosecutors and defense lawyers told a federal judge there is no plea deal after a disagreement over immunity from possible future charges. During the hearing, the judge asked if the plea agreement also included immunity for any possible charges involving Hunter Biden's business dealings, for which they said no. So this is ongoing, and we'll bring you any developments in this case as it unfolds. The U.S. government is in possession of UFOs. What? Yes, it's what a former U.S. intelligence official said while testifying before a House subcommittee today. David Grush says he knows it's the case based on dozens of classified interviews within the intelligence community. We'll see.
This is a huge bit of testimony that's going on today in Washington, and we're going to talk about it more tomorrow. I don't understand one thing. Maybe this can be explained to me by one of you in the chat. Why, if we have, as you just said, Kim, there have been UFO interplanetary visitors or whatever, and they've been here before, and we have them. Is that what the story was?
He says he had that. The government has UFOs in its possession.
So I don't understand why the government wouldn't be more forthcoming with that information. In other words, can someone explain to me what interest the government has in covering up that information? I don't get it. Now, maybe it's sitting there in front of me and I don't get it, but I just don't.
Maybe they think people will freak out. Chaos will ensue. Like
chaos.
The movie Fourth of July, where people are standing on buildings waiting for the end, and people are waving signs in front of Area 51. Maybe they don't want the hubbub, the hoopla.
Okay. Thanks, John. Thanks, John Woodard. Appreciate the $10 super sticker. Yeah.
Yay,
okay. Maybe
$10 for UFOs. The Federal Reserve is expected to announce another interest rate hike. Can't even say it. That's how much I don't want it. The Fed wrapping up its 2-day meeting on the matter later today. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's post-meeting comments will likely provide insight into what's next for the central bank policy and how it currently views the state of the economy. But they are expected to announce another interest rate hike. The head of Health and Human Services is defending the agency's handling of illegal immigrant children who it's a sad picture, who've been caught crossing the border. Secretary Javier Becerra was grilled, really, in a hearing today that looked at a surge of unaccompanied children across the border. He says kids are only placed with sponsors who have been thoroughly vetted. Republicans on the committee blasted Javier Becerra for ignoring reports that minors have been lost in the system, leading to abuse and forced labor. It always seems to be an issue, and no matter who's in the White House, it's always their fault.
Yeah, that's
New
right.
homes,
no real substantial gains in that entire situation, from either side.
New home sales slowing down. Finally, government figures show sales of new single-family homes fell to an annual rate of 697,000 units in June, 2.5% decline from May. Work is underway in Southern California. Yeah, because of cracks discovered in a cliff. They're trying to prevent this cliffside from falling onto the Pacific Coast Highway in Southern California. So crews have started using a crane. The work began overnight to try to stabilize the Santa Monica Bluff. They are scraping away so much dirt, it'll likely take about 15 dump trucks to haul it all away. A huge crack was spotted 2 weeks ago, and city officials say they can't pinpoint if it'll break off tomorrow, in a month, or 10 years from now.
No, that's nice.
And don't walk under that cliff. But in a very LA kind of turn of events, the person that discovered the crack in the cliff, Weird Al Yankovic's wife.
I love that. That's very strong.
Susan Yankovic. She's like, I think that's a crack in that cliff. No. we have, the actors strike going on, SAG-AFTRA strike, and now the Hollywood strike is delaying more movies and TV shows. Disney reportedly pushed back Avatar 3 to 2025. 2 Star Wars films are being pushed to 2026. Fans of The Mandalorian will have to wait longer for season 4. Same for the second season of HBO's The Last of Us. And the 5th season of Stranger Things on Netflix delayed too. The California-based streaming giant making headlines over new job listings as well. As actors and writers continue to picket, there's a job listing on Netflix for a product manager for artificial intelligence. The starting pay there is $900,000 a year.
Wow.
Somebody's making money. I don't know.
That's very strong. That's your starting pay.
Yeah. There is a mansion, a new Airbnb near Los Angeles. It's a tribute to Disneyland's Haunted Mansion. So if you ever wanted to stay in the Haunted Mansion, this is kind of next best thing. It's called the Ghostly Retreat. It's in Fullerton. It's been wired with special sound, lighting, and visual effects inspired by the famous haunted house. The Airbnb listed by a production designer who's worked with Universal Studios, Knott's Scary Farm, and other theme parks. A one-night stay at the Ghostly Retreat, $649.
Nah.
Be scared out of your pants, I guess.
Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show is crowdfunded, which means we rely on you for our livelihood. You can check us out at themarkthompsonshow.com. You'll find the Patreon and the PayPal links there. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mark Thompson.
Everything is going extremely well.
What he's got going here is a situation.
You people are crazy.
You just don't get it, really. You don't.
I cannot believe it.
It's fantastic.
Thompson, party of 4.
What are you doing?
You cannot say you love your country.
Sayonara, sucker. Good day, sir.
Why are you yelling? Seriously, what the
Yes. Excited. We are live from Washington, D.C. That's why I'm coming to you from literally the room that I slept in last night, or didn't really sleep in, that I tossed and turned in last night. I'm tossing and turning about the state of the world and the state of the nation and the state of this program. We change hours next week. We'll start an hour later, and so we'll go an hour later. And I'll remind you, if you haven't yet, you should subscribe to Kim's new podcast, which will follow this one live on YouTube. It's called The After Hours, isn't it?
The after party. The after party .live. Yeah.
The afterparty.live. The afterparty.live is where you find it. So if I go to the afterparty.live, I just click on it and I can subscribe.
That's right.
We need to get her to 1,000. That's the thing. Yeah. I have John Rothman waiting, and he's a very important man. But before I get to him, I want to put my credibility glasses on because I saw one very important thing, and this is a birthday.
Oh.
Albert, can you put Lorraine's birthday up there? Thank you. Celebrating my birthday today with you, Lorraine gave us $50.
Oh,
and
Lorraine.
She also notes, and this is really good knowledge on her part, I believe Jim Avala's birthday is today also. That is true. It is Jim Avala's birthday.
Happy birthday, Lorraine.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone.
Jim Avala, who's on the phone a lot. And our frequent political analyst, frequent, visitor, I should say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, there, Lorraine. Happy birthday to you, Lorraine, and
thank you.
All your birthdays be spent with us. And I also wanted to quickly address the comments of, I believe it's Vilma, who was kind of taking me on when I was criticizing Hunter Biden in that situation. How many buyers of the Trump children did the same thing? How many, as Hunter Biden selling his panty? Well, if you're using the Trump children as a guide as to what's acceptable, I think you're in trouble. And are you saying, this is her other one, are you saying, Mark, that Hunter doesn't have a right to make a living? Ivanka made a living, Donald Trump Jr. made a living, and Hunter Biden can't make a living? No, I just explained. He can make a living, and he can even sell his art if that's part of his living. It feels like it's a little bit of a side hustle. But when I see major Democratic donors buying his art for wildly inflated prices and then receiving appointments, as was the case of that one instance that I was mentioning to you, I think that's an issue. I don't approve of it with the Trump administration. I just want to be fair about not approving of that sort of thing with the Biden administration. And again, it has the appearance of impropriety. And I think that sucks. I want a cleaner system. And that doesn't feel like it's the clean. But, was Trump worse? Of course. I've just explained chapter and verse. Not even close. I mean, not even close. Trump was 100% grift all the time. The wall was a grift. He gave the wall accounts, and I detailed this for you in over days, to major donors, many of whom had companies that had never built a single wall. They had nothing to do with building. Trump just gave them the money to build a portion of the wall because they were major Republican donors. So please, I haven't lost sight of the biggest grifter, but I also am not going to look away from lesser grifters. All right. This guy is, he's brilliant, and we're so lucky to be able to talk to him. He does a regular podcast, a daily podcast, which I understand is on fire right now. How about it for John Rothman?
Thank you, Mark. I want to point out that you are in Washington, D.C., that Lincoln did not sleep in the Lincoln bed, but we can now have a view of the bed in which Mark Thompson slept.
Yes, exactly. John, you spent a lot of time in this town, didn't you?
I certainly did.
You were, what was your role in the Nixon administration?
I was director of the Nixon Collection, which was the foundation of the Nixon Library. But I used to come through Washington regularly to lecture, to participate in meetings, and I used to stay at the old Willard Hotel. In fact, the weekend that Dr. King was assassinated, I stayed at the Willard, and I saw the streets of Washington occupied, if you will, by our National Guard and the Army. It was one of the most terrifying sights of my life. And interestingly enough, to show you the spirit in those days, nobody could really get out because of the curfew. And so all of us volunteered in the Willard dining room to serve everybody else. It was one of the most remarkable events. But yes, I love Washington. My son Joel was in Washington for the first time last month, and he walked everywhere, and he just had the time of his life. He said it's an incredible city, and he's right.
It's a beautiful city, and Washington at night is stunning. The monuments, the
White House illuminated.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I still think the Jefferson Memorial is at night maybe the most beautiful, but it's a fun little contest to have in your mind because they're all so beautiful.
I'll give you an anecdote on that. When Bob Haldeman's daughter Anne got engaged, her future husband proposed to her at the Jefferson Memorial.
Oh, that is great.
It's one of those great moments.
God, it's wild that you knew all those guys who were brought down in that Watergate mess and trying to, that mess seems almost quaint compared to some of the other stuff that it has gone on. I specifically January 6th, for example. you're trying to overthrow an election. I mean, that kind of thing. So that's why I say it's almost, the Nixon stuff seems almost like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
It's very mild, believe me, compared to what Donald Trump tried to do.
Let me have you weigh in on this Biden thing. Since it's the news of the moment, the Hunter plea deal is being held up. They're gun charges. They're trying to figure out, the gun charges should be pled separately, et cetera. But also what I was talking about before, the fact that, Hunter has a side hustle with the painting and he's selling the painting and some of the paintings are purchased by Democratic donors, et cetera. John, speak to that, please.
Look, the target here is not Hunter Biden. Everybody knows that what Hunter Biden did was wrong. He has agreed to admit his guilt.
That's the tax stuff, right?
Yeah, there's no question about it. And on the gun charge, too, he says he was wrong. And how they deal with that is another question. The target here, and I use the term target advisedly, the target is not Hunter Biden. The target is Joe Biden. And if you have low blood pressure, as I do, and you listen to Fox, I won't call it news because that's an oxymoron, you know that my blood pressure goes up every time because in their mind, this is the real criminal intent. They call the Biden family the crime family. And you and all of our listeners must be aware that when Kevin McCarthy yesterday spoke about the impeachment of Joe Biden and then sort of stepped back carefully because of all of the feedback, he's really speaking to his base. According to Fox, Donald Trump is innocent of all of the accusations, but Joe Biden is guilty. And so that's the real target, and we need to bear that in mind.
Well, I mean, you make a really good point that there's even an effort to expunge, I guess, the record of any Trump impeachment hearing.
Which is not possible. You cannot expunge part of the congressional record. And so I think that goes nowhere. And the fact that Kevin McCarthy, in a discussion with Donald Trump, even implied that was possible is just ludicrous.
Albert, I said it, and then he said it. You're not going to ding expunge? Thank you. Sorry, John. So, John, I wonder if you could speak to what's happening on the GOP side. You talked a little bit about before I move on to the GOP presidential field, I wonder if you can handicap how this is. You're right. I think we can all agree that you're right when you talk about the fact that he's playing to his base and this impeachment talk is playing to the base. But will that, though, see the light of day? Do you think they literally will bring some kind of impeachment proceeding forward against the president, Joe Biden? Or are you seeing in the kind of baby steps that you just referred to, the ones that kind of him backpedaling a little bit, Kevin McCarthy I'm talking about, that it likely won't happen?
Look, Kevin McCarthy has only one concern. He wants to hold on to the speakership. He wants to keep the majority for the Republicans. He's down to 4 seats. And it doesn't look good for 2024. So he has to keep his troops in line. It's like herding cats, something you are very familiar with. And
you mean on this show, or you mean literally on cats?
Literally. And I want you to know it could be catastrophic for him.
Oh my God.
I'm
really?
sorry. If in fact he is unable to keep the Republicans in line. So that's his main goal. But the real issue here, and then we can deal with the question of the election of next year, is that the Republicans really believe that Joe Biden should be impeached. They believe he really is committing crimes. If you listen to what they're saying he received $8 million, $20 million, $100 million. We don't know how many million, but we know that they are accusing the entire Biden family of being a crime family, and that Joe Biden, was the big guy. And look, let me tell you very honestly, I've looked into it. There is no doubt in my mind that what the Bidens did and what Hunter did was wrong, and it should be condemned, absolutely. But to prove that Joe Biden accepted a bribe, they have yet to do. And they control the 2 most powerful congressional committees dealing with this. So they need to step up to the plate. They need to prove their point, or frankly, it becomes another political myth. But let's be clear, so there's no ambiguity. What Hunter Biden did was wrong. He is not the first presidential child or relative to abuse that kind of situation.
When you're saying what he did, what are you talking about now?
He agreed to serve on a board of a company. He had no knowledge about energy, the Burisma thing, nothing. He was put on because his name was Biden.
Well, there's no that there can be no dispute, but that's not illegal.
No, and I'm not saying it is, but I am saying.
So is it wrong?
There should be a law relating to presidential families and how presidential names are used.
Yes.
Look, Sam Houston Johnson, Lyndon Johnson's brother, Don Nixon, Nixon's brother, Billy Carter, and Libya. We all remember these things, and so.
Didn't Bill Clinton have a Roger Clinton? Wasn't Roger his?
He certainly did. Who received a pardon, you'll recall.
Yeah. It's nice that he.
Now, can we go to the real issue?
All right. Yes.
The substance of the next election. If Donald Trump wins the Iowa caucus, and the latest poll says he's going to win substantially, if he wins the caucus, and then if he goes to New Hampshire and wins the primary, not to mention South Carolina, which is right there as well, he will be the Republican nominee for president of the United States. The only way he can be stopped, and Mitt Romney talked about this in a piece in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, is if the Republican Party unites behind one person. Well, Ron DeSantis? My God, the guy's campaign is failing, and deservedly so. This whole question, we can go in at great length about what is happening in Florida. But Mike Pence, who may be the most reasonable facsimile thereof, is failing as a candidate. The one that everyone is now looking to is Tim Scott of South Carolina. And I'll stick my neck out and say, if I were Donald Trump and I had to choose a running mate, it would be Tim Scott. And let me point out, he is the one person who Donald Trump is not attacking. Every other potential candidate has been attacked in one way or another. But the Republican Party has a serious problem. And it pains me to say this, that they are now the party of Trump. They're not a Republican Party. You know, they didn't adopt a platform last time around. They simply said whatever Donald Trump wants will be our policy. That's no way to run a political party.
It's definitely a changing political landscape. It's just, it ain't your daddy's party, or it ain't your daddy's politics. That's why we talk about media so much on this show. I think media and political messaging is sort of what it's all about. And it's interesting that you mentioned Tim Scott. I'm just looking at the share of GOP presidential candidates' funds raised from small dollar donors. And Donald Trump has 81% of the small dollar donors that are going into the GOP. Number two, we haven't mentioned. You know who it is? Vivek Ramaswamy. Now,
absolutely, and he's everywhere.
He's everywhere, and he's getting a lot of bumps from a polling standpoint, and also a lot of interest now from media. John, how do you assess him?
And next week he's speaking at the Richard Nixon Library.
So how do you assess him? He makes sense.
I have to tell you, I've listened to him. He's even further to the right than Donald Trump is.
I agree, by the way. When I say he makes sense, I mean he sounds like he knows. It's like a smart guy. I totally disagree with him on everything he's talking about.
No, it's really terrible. And may I just add to that if you listen to Gutfeld the other day on Fox, who now has a major show, and he's now being condemned for his comments relative to Jews and the Holocaust.
He said that that during the Holocaust, Jews actually picked up survival skills in the camps. That was the upside.
It was absolutely ludicrous. And he cited Viktor Frankl. Let me tell you, Viktor Frankl used to come to San Francisco. He stayed at David's Hotel. David Applebaum, here in San Francisco, a Holocaust survivor, was one of Frankl's close friends. And I came down, I met Viktor Frankl, and I had an opportunity to chat with him. And I'm going to tell you, what Gutfeld said is so abhorrent that even the Auschwitz Museum made a comment saying this is out of the question. And may I say, I spent last night listening to Robert Kennedy Jr., who was speaking on a Hannity program. And it was a setup, they just a mutual love fest. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a disgrace in every way. And the fact that it interested me, he's at 20%. But you know who is supporting him, who likes him? Republicans, because he is their man.
Well, I think you talk about all of these candidates who are brought forward to dirty up Biden and to wound Biden. And perhaps head of that parade would be RFK Jr. simply
whose money is coming from Republicans. You can take a look and see from his filings. It's just astounding.
Well, and that's the third party move that they're looking at in the 3D chess of politics, right, John? You bring a third party to, I'm talking about an RFK Jr. type, and who does he take votes from? Not from the Trumpies, the MAGA people. You can't get votes from them. They have a death grip on Donald Trump.
To the person who runs the no label thing.
Yeah.
He was on as well. And I listened to a lot of these things. It was very interesting. And he was asked about Ross Perot and his impact in the election of 1992. And he said, well, the polls show that an equal number of Perot voters would have voted for Biden and would have voted for Bush. Rubbish. Nonsense. We know that the reason that George H.W. Bush lost the election was because of Ross Perot. And we know further that Ross Perot ran because he hated George H.W. Bush. I mean, I listened to the distortions that take place in a lot of these commentaries where it's easily disprovable. But it's hard because there's no rebuttal, which brings me to what you do and what I do and what Kim will be doing and what Nikki does, which should be on a radio station where everybody can listen rather than having to subscribe. It's just distressing to me because we can't call this out for what it is. So let me tell you, I have no problem with a third party, but I want to remind you the last time a third party candidate for president won the election was Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Third parties don't win; they just detract.
Yeah, they're spoilers. They're spoilers.
Yeah,
but if
that's
you,
exactly it.
And that's the reason, as you suggested, that the GOP is supporting RFK Jr., supporting him, and you see Hannity, dragging him out in front of that,
And
as
no
you suggest,
labels.
a set-up town hall.
No labels won't release where their money's coming from. They said, "Oh, we're not a political party."
No
You don't
labels
have to-
is a wash in
absolutely
dark.
absurd.
Look, I said this last week when you were on, because we went around and around about no labels. I believe no labels. I believe they are GOP. I think they're infested with dark money. I get it. Joe Lieberman and their CEO is a Democrat. But look at where their money comes from and look at what their agenda is. You don't mount a third party for all the reasons that Brother Rothman just mentioned unless you want to take down the Democrat. And I think that's what their plan is.
You remember, and it's important for people to remember this historically, George Wallace ran in 1968 American Independent Party. His goal was to take enough electoral votes to deny Nixon or Humphrey the election, which would have forced it into the House of Representatives, which the Democrats controlled, which Wallace then felt he could cut a deal with Hubert Humphrey, and therefore, while he couldn't himself be president, he would be able to be a mover and shaker. And people need to understand the potential manipulation of the American political movements. That's it.
John, give me a quick second on, you can see all the love you got here on this show. Green Party may hurt Biden more than no label, says Para-Judge Imbob. That's certainly true, right,
Yes,
John?
particularly if Cornel West is the nominee.
Yeah.
I've interviewed Cornel West. I think you have too. It's throwing the election, if you will. May I just tell you that the defeat of Donald Trump in 2024 is an absolute imperative. Talk about weaponization. Donald Trump openly talks about the fact that if he's president, he's going to take care of all these people. He's going to go into his Justice Department and he's really going to nail these people. And not only that, there is now talk by Donald Trump of completely reorganizing the American government. There was a book that was published in the 1970s called The Plot That Failed, because Nixon planned very much the same thing of reorganizing the government, centralizing power in the American presidency. Richard Nathan wrote that book, by the way, The Plot That Failed, and I commend it to you. What Donald Trump is proposing is even worse, because Donald Trump is saying he's going to weaponize the Justice Department. And by God, why aren't people talking about it? I don't.
Well, it's so funny that conversation that you're talking about that isn't going on is not going on in the shadow of a whole congressional investigation into the weaponization of the Justice Department by the Biden administration. They're dragging the head of the FBI, everybody from Justice up there. And as you say, meanwhile, your guy, the last president, by the way, he's saying he's going to use the Justice Department to go after political enemies. It's
somebody asked me the
utter lunacy.
Somebody asked me the difference between Nixon and Trump. Nixon, whatever you thought of him, respected the Constitution. He understood the way the process worked. Donald Trump has no respect for constitutions, no respect for law, and frankly, that is terrifying.
Well, you know something, John, certainly I think that's indisputable, but I think the other disturbing thing is that Donald Trump has so many Confederates. I mean, if Donald Trump, not Verizon is not one of them. I don't know why that's up there. But but if Donald Trump was just the one lawless guy who, as you say, doesn't care about the Constitution, only cares about lining his own pockets, etc., if he wasn't surrounded by a bunch of people who were doing his bidding and making all of that stuff possible, then it would be a much easier run. If he was constantly surrounded by people saying, Mr. President, we can't do that, we can't do that. Instead, you have people who the lust for power is immense.
And the people who have spoken up and said you can't do that are fired, are removed from the immediate circle. But these are real issues, and you and I and Kim McAllister on her new program, and Nikki, and certainly in my podcast, we're going to talk about this. And
Kim, are you going to talk about this on your program? I don't see you talking a lot about this on your program. What is the vibe of your new program? Tell Brother Rothman what you have planned.
We're going to talk about stories of the day, some late breaking news, and some fun things. So,
Okay. I just think it's going to be more of a lighter landing type thing.
Yeah, not going to be as hard hitting as.
It's not going to be. It's not Rothman. It's not like your podcast or this show where I get angry at stuff.
If you need a heavy hitter,
there you go.
I'm
Rothman,
right there with you.
Rothman is suited up and ready to get into the game always.
And I urge people to subscribe to it because you hit 1,000 and you've really got some momentum. And I think it's a great continuum. If this all takes off well enough, maybe we'll find a radio station to adopt all of us once again.
We've already got the lineup. Yeah.
Vivian, thanks for the super sticker for the $10. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, I do. We need all of our supporters, and this is the new world trying to get support. So thank you, Vivian. John, Around the Political World with Jon Rothman is the show that has taken off so quickly. Honestly, I'm a bit.
Don't be jealous. I thank you because many of the people who listen to the Mark Thompson program are subscribing to what we're doing, and I hope it all carries over. We can only succeed if we work together to have that voice that is so important.
Well, in that case, you're welcome.
I'm very grateful. I am.
John, I love you. You know that, and you'll be back here next week, and I'll be in studio
at 11:30.
At 11:30, your new time.
Time change.
Your new
Don't
time.
say I didn't do anything for you.
All right. Find John in his podcast, Around the Political World with Jon Rothman. His offerings are always welcome. Thanks, John. Bye, Jon Rothman. Yeah, right on. See how grateful Jon Rothman is?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, you see how he is so grateful for the subscribers that I've shoveled his way for his
I saw
podcast.
That he was. Yeah, he's very.
That might be a good model for you to adopt.
Very polite.
Kim. You see how he? Yeah, I think so. Like, how I work very hard to get the flow of subscribers to you.
Doesn't mean anything if you have to ask for the thank you.
Exactly.
You
which is why now.
Wait for the thank you to
exactly,
come your
and
way.
I'm tired of waiting, and I don't understand why I even had to ask for it. It's unbelievable. I'm here pumping. John Daly's in the chat too. Hey, here's the thing that everybody's working. All I'm saying is, a little thanks.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Casey gets it. A major intelligence scandal is brewing. I'll have that story. And special guest, one of the experts worldwide in logistics, who will take us through this entire tangled web, and we'll do it next. Hit the like button. Thanks for being here, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Back to the Hunter Biden case. The plea deal fell apart in federal court today. Instead, President Biden's son pleaded not guilty to federal tax charges after a judge rejected a proposed plea agreement. Prosecutors and defense lawyers tried to put together a revised plea deal after a disagreement over the original one. The original plea deal appeared to fall apart after the judge asked prosecutors if it provided immunity for any future charges related to Hunter Biden's business dealings. After the prosecutor said it did not, defense attorneys said then there was no deal. While lawyers had reportedly agreed to a revised deal, judge said she was not ready to accept it, so both sides were asked by the judge to file briefs explaining the legal structuring of a new plea deal. So that's where we stand. House Democrats are dismissing Republican talks of opening an impeachment investigation into President Biden. House Democratic Caucus Chairman Pete Aguilar today calling it a complete distraction, accusing Republicans of not taking on issues to better the lives of Americans. He said Republicans only want to harm the president politically. His comments come after Speaker McCarthy earlier this week said investigations into President Biden's family are rising to the level of an impeachment inquiry. We have video of this next story. It's building inspectors on the scene of a partial crane collapse. This one happened in Midtown Manhattan, happened this morning, and the crane came down right during a very busy morning time. Word is that at least 6 people were hurt. The extent of the injuries unknown, but really, we have to check out what happened in New York this morning with this crane. You can see it. The smoke coming from the crane, and then according to CNN, they'll in a moment show you exactly what happened. Here it is, where the crane, they're dropping from the ground. Yeah, first it swings into one building, then it swings into another building, and then they say hits one building, comes all the way down across into another building.
Oh my God.
And then drops and smashes to the ground below.
And how many people were hurt?
At least 6. And it doesn't appear life-threatening, although the extent of the injuries is not known at this time.
So it looks like there was a fire on that platform. Is that what that water is being directed toward?
That's right. That's firefighters from across the way trying to put out the whatever fire happened,
God.
Maybe with the engine. Yeah.
That is brutal.
Completely. So, yeah, it seems like a lot more people could have been impacted by this one. And look at, how far it fell. Ugh. Thank you for showing the video, Albert. I appreciate that. And my bad. I'm sorry.
I thought you could have done a better job with the video, Albert, to be honest.
I thought it was pretty
What?
good. But I showed the Verizon thing earlier. I clicking on the wrong thing. I'm sorry. But I wanted to tell you that an outage that affected Verizon wireless customers across the nation has now been resolved. A Verizon spokesperson said in a statement, engineers have resolved an issue that caused intermittent call failures this morning. According to data maps, the Northeast was the most affected. It included New York City, Boston, and Philadelphia. The outages first reported at about 8 a.m. Eastern time. And I don't know if he's coming back to a screen near you, but actor Kevin Spacey is being cleared of all charges in his sexual assault trial in London.
Oh, the big English trial is over.
It is.
And Kevin Spacey, I'm free, my lord.
A jury found him not guilty.
Guilty, my lord. Not guilty.
On 9 charges.
He's an actor. That's why I'm doing my over-the-top actor.
In connection with alleged encounters with 4 men, while the 2-time Oscar winner was in London from 2001 to 2013. So this trial went on for 4 weeks. It featured testimony from high-profile witnesses like Elton John. Spacey could have faced life in prison if he had been convicted. Yeah, Elton John.
My lord, I'd like to call Elton John, please, to the stand.
I think that's Sir Elton to you. Yeah.
Sir Elton John, please, my lord.
And the Elton John was called because one of the alleged victims in the case said that he was at Elton John's yearly charity fundraiser gala benefit when one of the attacks happened, and he got the year wrong. So Elton John came on and said Kevin Spacey wasn't here that year. So anyway.
Wow, they actually had to bring Elton John to the stand, or was it a video testimony?
I don't know if it was video or live. I'm not sure. if Sir Elton John was in person.
Tickets to the court that day went for some real money.
I'm telling you. There is yet another freeway shooting in the Bay Area. This time, though, the victim, or the suspect, I should say, in the case, is a naked woman. CHP says she flashed a gun near the Bay Bridge toll plaza last night during rush hour, then stopped, got out of her car twice on the Bay Bridge, once to yell at drivers. Witnesses say the second time, without any clothes on, she fired a gun into the air. No one was hurt. The woman was arrested, but major traffic delays.
I do not approve, as you know, of anything that holds up bridge traffic. I do not. I don't traffic generally. It's
even naked lady.
That's my point. I mean, I don't care. Hot naked lady, three hot naked ladies.
The gun wasn't the only thing she flashed, Kim.
Oh, how about that, Albert? Everybody, come on.
Nice.
Yeah, Albert. Everybody. He was lying in the weeds for that one.
It is official now in Vallejo, where there is indeed a state of emergency. The city council voted for it last night because of the police officer shortage. This will provide more resources to the police department, which could include help from outside agencies. The interim police chief says the department has only 34 cops on patrol, with no traffic officers or detectives. He says it's a problem not only with recruiting, but retaining those in uniform. The department now working to hire at least 50 more officers until they can get out of the state of emergency in Vallejo. And just in case you are keeping track, the Mega Millions jackpot keeps on growing. No winner on Tuesday. So the next prize for Friday's drawing, $910 million. The Mark Thompson Show is crowdfunded, which means we rely on you. You can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Patreon link is there, PayPal link is there, and of course, Super Chat is live here on the show. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective. How about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Yeah, what up, everybody? It is a great Wednesday. Great to be with you all. I'm in Washington, D.C., which is why this backdrop is a little bit different. I've tried to move
Can we
to
get
an
mail
area,
service, please?
To an area. There is that sense, right, that I should be getting turned down service.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi, I wanted to try to get it more solid. I wasn't happy with yesterday's Wi-Fi when I'm on the road. It's my dad's 93rd birthday this week, so that's why I'm back here. You know, he's had kind of a rough ride, so wanted to be back here for him. This is before I bring on John. Stan Pollock, CPA, with a $10 super chat, asked Kim, I came on late. Did you hit 1,000? And the answer, I think, is you're close there. You're at 9 something. I mean, it's
909.
Yeah, so that's
and it really is all thanks to Mark Thompson. You know, I couldn't.
Now it feels
I
fake.
couldn't do anything about Mark.
Nothing. It feels fake. Save it. Now it's just awful. It's just awful. Okay. I'm so excited to have this next guy on. There's a major brewing story that I had no knowledge of, and I suspect that no one who is watching, listening, is aware of this either. This guy is one of the world's leading experts in logistics, in that business of getting something from here to there. You know, supply chain, all of that is the business of logistics. And when it comes to modernizing that, this guy has been viewed as one of the people who can take us and all the technologies related to that into the new age. How about it? Jon Rosenthal, everybody. Yeah. Hello, Jonathan Rosenthal.
Marco, how are you?
I'm well. I'm really excited to have you here. I wanted to get you on anyway to talk about government and all of this, because you've worked with the U.S. government and see how slowly the gears of government grind. But today, it's a far bigger story, and I'd love for you to share aspects of it with my audience. I mean, there's a lot to it, I think. And it involves, from what I understand, John, the world of drones. And I wonder if you can speak to how drones are used in virtually everything now. I don't think we think of them in military, and we think of them, I think, in some other ways, but maybe not in all the ways that they're used.
Well, yeah. I mean, let me give a little background. But look, frankly, I'm here to get a Mark Thompson coffee cup. Okay? So,
Albert, can you put Jonathan Rosenthal down for a coffee cup?
The whole empty bed background. Yes. I mean, the psychology of that, Mark, is just too much.
You're right. It's a little on the nose. Yeah, it's a little much.
Anyway, listen. So yes, I'm in the logistics world, which is a lot of things, airlines, retail, all kinds of stuff. But as I shared with your listeners a couple of weeks ago, I've spent the last dozen years really focused on the subset of supply chain. And in those travels, where I really I'm really blessed to spend time with the leading experts in the world on supply chain. Particularly on the technology side, I came across some information that blew my socks off. In fact, so much so, I learned what I'm going to share with your listeners, which I do not believe has been reported in any media, So the Mark Thompson podcast is the breaking story. Okay?
I appreciate it, and you're.
I'm telling you,
you're kind of being a little bit, puckish and funny about it, but the reality is, it is a legit huge story that is going to make front page headlines. Yes,
I'm not. I'm telling you, Mark, we're going from your bedroom to the front page of the Washington Post. Okay, that's where we're headed. All right. So let me tell you this. So first of all, when I learned this, and I've been in this business for 40 years. When I learned this, I said, this cannot be true. I must misunderstand something. And I didn't at first want to share it with anybody because it's so crazy that I thought, I got to be wrong. I must be misunderstanding something. So, and Mark, I have shared with you some data, hard data from government agencies because, I didn't want you to think I'm full of shit.
Right.
which we're going to get done with this little podcast, and
people are going to go,
your listeners are going to go, this guy's can't be right. Okay, here we go. Look, we all know that drones are really cool. They're advancing very rapidly, and they're advancing in a couple of places, right? We all know about drones and military weaponry. Right? So you're flying a drone over somebody and shooting at them. Okay, so we're not talking today about weaponry. That's a whole different world and a whole different set of suppliers and motivation and all kinds of stuff. We're not talking about weaponry. What we're talking about is drones that are used to capture information, data. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. Now, there is a world, which I'm not going to talk about today because I don't know shit about it, which is the world of hobbyists. There is a world of hobbyist drones, not something I'm involved with. So I'm involved in data and information collection, curation, and analytics, particularly as that analytics can be, particularly as you can apply artificial intelligence to the data you're collecting. So let's think about that, okay? So the drone really has a couple of pieces. There's something called a chassis, which is the actual flying thing, right? The thing that with the blades on it that moves around. There's a payload, and that payload is some sort of sensor. It could be a camera, which is imagery. It could be a heat sensor. Could be a LiDAR. So there's lots of stuff you can stick on the chassis that gives you different kind of data. But what people need to think about is the drone in my world is nothing more than a device for collecting data. That's what it is. Okay, that data becomes super powerful as the drone and the payload get better and better. So today, the technology is such that the drone can actually collect, using certain kinds of payloads, can collect granularity up to 1 centimeter, right? So you can fly over, pick a topic, the Port of Los Angeles. You could fly over the Port of Los Angeles, and I could know everything in that port and how it's moving, where it sits, the flow of containers in and out, the flow of trucks in and out, within 1 centimeter of granularity, right? So that's really cool data. I mean, that's really important data.
And when you say I could fly a drone into the drones are flown to keep track of a lot of stuff going on there, right? And that's the point. It's not like we're talking the existing drone programs data on all that stuff you're talking about.
Oh yeah. So that exists, right? I mean, and they're being used for all kinds of stuff. Our sewer systems. There are drones where they open the manhole cover, they throw the drone down, the drone zips along the sewer system and inspects the sewer system. Okay, that's a use of the drone. That's what we think of as a use case. Okay, so there's millions of different uses. All right, there is a dominant player in the manufacturing and distribution of drones. The dominant player is a company called DJI. And they have about 75% market share in the world distributing and manufacturing drones. Now, they don't just distribute and manufacture the drone, because the drone is absorbing data. And you can't really do anything with raw data. You want solutions to problems as a customer. And so you have to have a data or information platform that can absorb that information, can curate that information, can organize that information, and can somehow give you solutions to problems. So that's the information platform. So DJI, which is by far the dominant player in the drone world, provides a service. They're not just selling you a drone. They're selling you a service.
They're saying we'll get all this data for you by drone, and now we're going to curate, as you suggested, and analyze so that you have some sense made of that data.
Correct. Because depending on what company you are, or city or county or federal government or whatever, obviously you've got different kinds of questions. So whatever question you have, we'll try to answer it by taking what is thought of as a data lake. That's all the data that gets collected. And we'll go through it, and we'll tell you answers to problems using that data. Okay. So that exists today. We're in the middle of that. We own a company that I think is going to be a big player in the hosting of that data. We're partners with the largest company in the world that does data hosting for location intelligence. And that's really the science we're talking about here, is location intelligence. Okay. So none of that should be shocking. None of that should be surprising. That all exists.
Let me just ask you a question, just because you used the term, and I want to make sure I'm clear on it. Location intelligence means what? Just intelligence related to a specific area and place?
Exactly. So you got to think about, this is lots and lots of data, right? Lots and lots of data. How the hell do you organize that data, and how do you access the data if it's not well organized? I mean, you can't just. I mean, it's like going to the Library of Congress and not having index cards or some kind of computer to tell you where do I find the book on how to pick your nose. I mean, what do I do, right? So you got to organize that data. You've got to have a way to access that data in a way that's not so cumbersome that it makes the data worthless. Okay, so the location intelligence is a way to organize data. And it's a very powerful way, because the one thing every asset in the world has in common, doesn't matter what the asset is, could be a truck, could be a chassis, could be an electron, could be an airplane. The one thing every asset has in common, including people, by the way, is that they all have a place at a point in time. They all have a latitude, longitude, and altitude at a moment in time. Okay? So that's a wonderful way to organize information, is geospatially. And then you surround that. So you might say, for example, I don't want to get too far in location intelligence. You might say, for example, I'm a utility. I want to know where all my telephone poles are. Okay, great. So now we now know latitude, longitude, altitude, where your telephone pole is.
And by the way, that's relevant to a lot of us because of the PG&E fires and all the rest. They do use drone technology now to track that and to evaluate it. Okay.
But you really want to know a lot more than where's my telephone pole, right? You might want to know, for example, when was it installed? What kind of material did they use? What are the easements leading up to that telephone pole? What are the wires hooked up to it? What's the hardware? We got to condense.
And you're saying all that information can be digested and curated alongside the drone information that you've talked about?
So location intelligence is that information organized around a place, a latitude, longitude, and altitude. Okay. So all of that surrounding information you can now access by merely going to the latitude, longitude, altitude. Okay.
Wow, that's extraordinary. And is that all done by this company that dominates the drone space?
No, that's an industry. Okay. That's an entire industry. Okay. So, and we're in the middle of that industry. Okay. So as part of this, we learned a lot. I learned a lot about drones. And I came across and learned about the drone market and learned that this company, DJI, has, the dominant player in drones. And they're out there collecting
75% of the market. And so all that data goes into them, you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. 75%.
How are they so dominant in the market, this one company?
Well,
we'll get to that. Put that to the side. Now, go ahead. Tell me
why they're dominant. They're very clever, is why they're dominant.
Okay.
Here's the aha moment. That company is owned by the Chinese government. That data resides on servers in China. So these drones, 75% of the market, are flying over every city, over every port, over every rail yard, over every bridge, over every utility infrastructure, collecting data, and that data is stored in China. Now your listeners are either going, "Oh my God, they're running for the doors," or they're going, "This guy's full of shit." And I'm telling you, this is true. Now, the government, you might scratch your head and go, "Well, how the hell did we allow that to happen?"
But they're worried about TikTok. They're worried about a lot of other things that come from China. Why didn't they focus on this? Oh, you're muted, John. I think you muted yourself by accident, maybe. Albert, can you help him? Why is he muted? Muted right at the most dramatic moment in the whole thing?
Yeah, there's a button on the bottom left. It says you just had to hit that probably.
Yeah, bottom left, just the bottom left there on your screen. No, it's not. It's coming from you're muted. It doesn't matter your source. You're muted. How can someone so sophisticated technologically have inadvertently hit the mute button? This is the true irony of. No.
How about anything?
That's
there we
better.
go.
That's good. Yeah. So you just okay. Good.
I don't know. It may have my microphone switched off. So hopefully this is better.
You sounded okay. You sound okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So
how did they allow? You were fine with the other microphones. Don't worry about it. The other. How did they allow? Is the question. This Chinese government-controlled firm to get 75% of the market. What happened?
Well, the Chinese are very clever. What they said was, hey, you can buy our drone. We have really good drones. They're as good as anything else on the market. And we're going to sell them at a 20% discount to the rest of the market. So every police department, every county, every fire department, everybody in the drone market said, shit, I can buy this for 20% less. I'm in. Well, the truth is the Chinese could have given the drones away for free. The data is the valuable part. Now, what blows my mind, Mark, is, everybody's been reading about the weather balloon, the Chinese weather balloon we shot down, and nobody's talking about the 10,000 drones that are every day collecting data, and they know where every asset in the U.S. is. With great granularity, not a weather balloon. I mean, a weather balloon, really? The capabilities of a weather balloon are really minimal.
Yeah, that was viewed as this huge international incident. And you're saying there is a brewing international incident here related to serious data and compromise of data that's related to everything in the U.S., from, as you suggested, bridges to ports. Correct.
So, look, there is some recognition by the U.S. government that what I've just described to you is a problem. In 2023, they passed something called the Drone Act, and so you can go online and you can look up the Drone Act. And it was sponsored by a very smart guy, Mark Warner, who's a U.S. senator from Virginia. He was the lead. He's the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Pretty smart guy. And so in a nutshell, it basically says, look, if you're going to buy a Chinese drone and house the data in China, you can't use federal funds. Okay, well, it's a start.
It's a start, right?
It's a start.
It ain't where you want to end up, though.
It ain't where you want to end up. And your listeners should be troubled by this, because I think we have a solution to the problem going forward, but I don't know that we have a solution to the problem going backwards. How do you get this data back?
Right. The horses are out of the barn.
Horses are out of the barn, but it gets worse as you collect more data, because you can then not only see where things are, yesterday, but you can begin to see movement. You can begin to see relative movement. So you want to put a stop to this pretty quickly. And one of the reasons I wanted to come on your podcast and share this with your listeners is that I intend to go further and talk to the government and say, what the heck are we doing here? Because those drones are flying in U.S. airspace. And so you could say, as one possible solution or mitigation, look, if you fly in U.S. airspace, you got to have a certified drone. And that drone has to store its data in the U.S. by an American company.
I love that. That's a simple solution.
How hard's that? But does it absolutely blow your mind that every day, 24/7, we're allowing drone? I mean, it's like, like if a Chinese airplane flew over the U.S., a spy plane, we'd sort of get wound up about it.
Well, we just did, as noted.
A weather balloon,
yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's utter insanity.
It is insanity.
And it just speaks to how sometimes we're so worried with the distractions that the big stuff is going on and we pay no attention to it.
Yeah.
As you say, I've seen nothing on this.
I know. I know. And I saw nothing. I was surprised by the whole thing, and I'm in the business. But look, the Chinese are very clever. They've been collecting this data for a decade. And they did it quietly. And they said, well, the way we're going to do this is we're going to give you a really good drone, really cheap. right? And we said, I'm in. We don't care what you do with the data. Yeah, I'm a fire department. What do I care?
Is this an unregulated, I always get,
yes,
we always talk about, it's an unregulated. So, I'm a big fan of regulations. I understand you can over-regulate. You can make these regulations on various things so cumbersome that you get nothing done. But I also feel as though I view regulation as protections, for consumer protections, banking protections, environmental protections. And in this case, here you go. You've got a classic example of it where the technology has outpaced any sort of regulatory arm.
Yes. Yes, that is true. And I generally am I would say I'm a skeptic of regulation, that you got to be very careful about how you regulate. But for sure, there is a place for regulation. And flying a sensor over hugely sensitive areas, I mean, it's crazy to have that sitting on servers in China.
Can you, as you begin to, I guess, be a change agent around this, Jonathan Rosenthal, can you get the meetings you need? You probably can. Who would those meetings be with, or with what governmental entities might you meet?
Well, I'm going to go have lunch with Mark Warner to start out with.
Right. Who sponsored that legislation? Okay.
Yeah, because his staff seems to understand the issue, right?
It's a great issue. I mean, it's a great political issue. That's why I would think you'd get some spark in Washington among legislators. You want to be out in front on this thing.
Yeah, I'm just but I think it's also just people like your listeners, calling up their congressman and going, I heard about this. What do you know about this? Because this seems nuts. What they can do with that information is staggering. That
oh my God,
it's hugely valuable.
I can't even imagine it. I mean, it's essentially the entire country mapped.
Listen, I don't want people getting overly concerned about this in terms of, it's not about, hey, China is going to shoot missiles at a bridge. Okay. Could they do that with this data? Absolutely. But that's not really the threat. Well, you know what I mean?
Sure. It's far. I mean, I think the mastery of China has been in economics and economic dominance and supply chain stuff. As you know, during the pandemic, it was which continues on some low level now. It was revealed that essentially we need China for everything we have to handle the pandemic. I mean, from
not just the pandemic. I think what we discovered in supply chain, and I'm frankly, glad that some of this came about, was that, and we've been screaming about it for a long time, that we have a very fragile system, and that system is susceptible to disruption. So we saw over time, very small things in the supply chain. The bankruptcy of a shipping company, all of a sudden it melts down the whole system, right? So the system is quite fragile. It continues, just because we fixed it, for a moment, don't kid yourself. It remains very fragile. It is fragile, Mark, primarily because of the information systems, the data, right? We cannot see the data. We don't know how things are moving. And that's largely as a result of unsensed assets. So the assets in the supply chain, trucks, chassis, containers, pallets, those assets are not connected to any communication device, and they're not connected to the internet. So you can't see that, you can't see it, you can't store that data. That's all changing.
That's astounding. And by the way, in the instance that you've just described, or in the case you've just described with so much data being stored on Chinese government servers, you end up with an idea that maybe it's not so bad that stuff has lived independent. I think from a logistics standpoint, it was bad, but from a data standpoint and data being compromised standpoint, maybe not so bad. New technologies might be walled off from that.
Yeah. Well, I think collecting the data is a really good thing.
Of course.
I just don't want it sitting in
storing
China.
storing the data.
Yeah, like it's a really good thing, but you ought to put it in a vault someplace.
Yeah, maybe in this country.
Yeah, maybe in this country, and maybe an American company ought to kind of oversee it, and maybe that company ought to have some sort of security oversight. And like really in China,
yeah.
What do you? I mean,
it really is. Again, as we move back and forth with an adversarial relationship with China, you end up in all sorts of different areas, economics and military, having to sort of reposition our country relative to theirs. This strikes me as a major ball that got into the outfield. I just do not know how it happened.
I'm with you. I'm with you, and I'm with you in large part because the one thing we really understand, I mean, we spend our whole lives dealing with this, is the power of data. And most people don't really wrap their heads around that, particularly now with the advances in artificial intelligence. That data, because as you know, artificial intelligence feeds on large data stocks, right? That's what it needs to live.
Sure.
And there is no larger data stock than logistics, that because every one of those assets at every minute of every day produces new data.
I was just trying to see a comment or two, and it is true. I'll just point this. Gordon says, I think 90% of the stuff I bought on Amazon was made in China. And by the way, that reflects, oddly, his comment reflects the predicament, which is, because the Chinese stuff is produced at a much cheaper rate, right? And that's what happened with these drones. They offered them at massive discounts.
But let's not confuse buying something from China that's manufactured in China, which, that's okay.
It's fine. Sure, I get it.
It's fine. And them storing our most precious data.
No,
right?
I get that. Guess what I was trying. For me, the Venn diagrams overlap when you get to why Gordon buys the Chinese stuff, or why that stuff becomes more appealing from a consumer standpoint, in the same way that it was more appealing to all of these different concerns that bought these drones, because discount, right? That's the reason they have 75% of the market, because it's good drone. It doesn't cost us money.
Exactly.
Isn't that what you were saying?
By the way, it is widely known that China subsidizes DJI.
I see. Right. So that's how they can
course
offer wildly discounted.
Of
yeah.
course.
And as you say, they would give it away.
Can you imagine these guys sitting around the Chinese government going, how do we get like all this data about everything in the U.S.? We want to know within 1 centimeter granularity everything about the U.S. How do we do that? Let's see. Let's give away drones. How about that? Oh, well, the U.S. government will never go for that. Are you kidding? Look what they did with the weather balloon. They're not going to allow drones. Holy shit. Anyway.
But there you go. And so in our last minute here, this is from Lee. So Jonathan, when a drone flies over a truck, et cetera, can they, quote, tag that item and then trace it and locate it whenever they want? Every time another drone flies over that item, is it recognized?
That's a great question. So artificial intelligence, just like tracking people, right? I mean, you know that, people have cameras, cities and, in London and Shanghai and place, they can actually take a picture of you, Mark Thompson, and they can then recognize you as you walk around. So could they do that with a truck? It's a great question. Probably. I don't really know that. They have a tremendous amount of granularity in the payload capabilities, right? So whether it's LiDAR or it's infrared or it's optical, this technology is much better than a satellite, for example.
Right.
We all look at satellites and go, oh my God, you can see the guy's license plate from space. Well, this is way closer and way more granular.
Yeah. Last is from Less Commentary. Says, I don't know why we're freaking out about China stealing data when Google, YouTube, Facebook doing the same thing. To be fair, Google, YouTube, Facebook, I'll let you answer, John, but they're not the Chinese government, first of all. But
that's I was going to say, that's sort of the obvious answer. If Google were to say, Yeah, we're collecting a lot of data, and we just opened up a big data center in Shanghai. And by the way, we decided to partner with the Chinese government. I think people would be wound up about that.
Yeah. No.
So at least the Googles of the world are, U.S. companies basing their data centers primarily in the U.S.
And this isn't your personal data, which I do think we're so, the terms and conditions, accept, we just hit it. We have no idea what's in it. But this is that's why I thought your background was so instructive. The fact that there is a granularity to all the data. And I love that you use the sewer system and you use communication systems, you use ports. I mean, it is a net that is cast so widely that it gives an adversary, an economic adversary, a military adversary, however you want to characterize the Chinese, a global adversary, information that you wouldn't want them to have.
It allows them to rebuild our infrastructure like cities digitally, right? Because you now have a digital framework of that city.
Sure.
And you can manipulate that. So you can say, well, what if we do this? What if we change how the traffic flows? Or what if, right? So those are called digital twins. You can manipulate digitally. You can actually see what happens when you do certain things to that infrastructure. So it's a fascinating area. But anyway,
it's fascinating, and this is wildly disturbing. And it's a huge story. I love that. Yeah.
I invite your listeners. You got a lot of smart people out there in the audience to let us know. Okay, what would you do with this? How do we get the government's attention?
You can contact me, and I'll push your correspondence onto Jonathan.
Good.
I'm the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. This is to be continued, though, most certainly. And I really want to know how the meetings go and how, the political chess game that now has to follow to get some legislation and some regulatory structure in place, how that goes. So I can't wait to talk to you again. John, thank you. We're way over, but I love this conversation. That's the reason we're way over. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Mark. And I'll be looking for my coffee cup.
All right. Jonathan Rosenthal. Right on. Albert.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Breaking news that Sinead O'Connor, I guess, just passed away, huh?
Yeah, I was going to do it in news, but we're a little bit late. Yeah, she's 56 years old. She is first reported on TMZ, and the Irish Times, where apparently her family sent a letter to the Irish Times saying they regret to inform everyone that she has passed on. She lost her son about a year ago to suicide, her 17-year-old son, and she's really struggled with severe mental health issues. But so far, no cause of death has been released. But it appears, according to reports from the Irish Times and TMZ, that Sinead O'Connor has passed at age 56.
Well, here's what I want to do, Kim. That's a sad and way too young a person. We'll, I guess, find out more about cause of death.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a couple of minutes of news. I'd love their conversation with Jonathan. Thank you for being patient. I just think that was a huge story, and it's amazing to me that it hasn't received any attention at all.
I mean, how we could be so upset over a balloon, but not realize that all the stuff that we were worried about with the balloon, they have it already.
Yeah,
they have everything.
Exactly.
They've got it all right on their servers at a finger's click. Wow.
But I just, as you say, how that could have stolen headlines while all the rest of this is going on all the time. So you can reach me, and I can give you more and connect you with Jonathan at the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. Kim's news, and then we all wrap up around here and remind you of where we are and the story on Kim's podcast and all the rest. So much to do. Smash the like button for Jonathan Rosenthal and for all of us here.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash with your iron rod. Do it. Do it for God and country, my lord. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. As we just reported, singer Sinead O'Connor, reports are that she has died at the age of 56. Breaking news. So I wanted to make sure that you had heard that. She, again, had been struggling with mental health issues and dealing with the death by suicide of her teenage son. No cause of death released for Sinead O'Connor. She was 56 years old. You remember on the Mark Thompson Show, we had covered this during the winter storms, where actor Julian Sands got lost hiking in the mountains in Southern California. His body was finally found several months later, and now today we hear the word that the cause of death for this British actor Julian Sands has been cited as undetermined. They don't know and will probably never know because of the decomposition of the body. They'll never know. Another big story today, Hunter Biden has pleaded not guilty to federal tax charges after a judge rejected a proposed plea deal. Prosecutors and defense lawyers tried to put together a revised plea deal after a disagreement over the original. The original plea deal appeared to fall apart after the judge asked prosecutors if it provided immunity for any future charges related to Hunter Biden's business dealings. And Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he is fine, but he had to be escorted away from a Republican leadership news conference this morning. The Kentucky senator appeared to just freeze after he had stopped talking during this news conference. Some of his colleagues then asked McConnell if he was okay before Senator John Barrasso held him by the arm and walked him away from the podium. McConnell later walked back to the news conference by himself. Earlier this year, McConnell spent time in a rehab facility after he tripped and fell at an event. And so, again, he kind of struggled today, but he says he's doing fine.
How old is Mitch McConnell, everybody? Anyone know? Albert, you want to...
I did see the headline on Twitter, so I do have the number.
So what is it?
81.
81. You don't hear a lot about from the GOP about how old he is. Now, he's too old to serve. You don't hear that.
No, they don't do that to men.
No. Well, they do it to Joe Biden.
Yeah, they do it to that. Yeah.
They do it to Biden. They did it to Feinstein. I did it to Feinstein.
Rudy Giuliani is conceding that he made defamatory statements about 2 Georgia election workers in an effort to settle a lawsuit against him.
That's not fake. That's real.
So he's making the admissions in an effort to settle the lawsuit.
Yeah, he wants it to go away. So it's a federal court filing Tuesday night. The former Trump attorney and New York City mayor, Giuliani, says he doesn't contest accusations from Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss that he defamed them after the 2020 election. He doesn't admit causing any damages to the workers and argues his comments about voter fraud are protected free speech.
Yeah, let me just say this about Rudy Giuliani, who nauseates me. I'm sickened by this man who dined out on being America's mayor for years. He then became this horrible, toxic force in about both American politics and American culture. And he was ruinous in those remarks toward those 2 poll workers, were they? Or they were election workers?
Right, poll workers.
They literally had to, they were fearing for their lives. And, in classic GOP, Giuliani fashion, the new GOP, where anything goes, they doxed them. There were people from shall we say, supporters of Giuliani and that party who showed up at their home. It's unnerving. So some tepid apology from Rudy Giuliani it stinks. It's awful.
Yeah. You talk about all the wrong he's done. I tend to think something's going on with him mentally.
No, I could care less. I don't. Yeah,
but
you're
saw
probably right on that.
The whole thing where he had the hair dye dripping down. I think he just has gone nutso.
Well, I mean, the hair dye. He just dyed his hair and it started melting in the heat, I guess. But I mean, that doesn't. I don't think reflect any kind of mental instability. I think that he wanted. Here's what I think, and I'm a lot less charitable than you are on this. Yeah. I think he wanted to be relevant. He wanted to be close to power, which is the way Donald Trump gets a lot of people on board. Larry Kudlow was another one. These are people who ascended to major governmental positions simply because they wanted some relevance. And Trump was so desperate, he didn't know anybody, couldn't find his butt with both hands. He was bringing all of these guys in just because he'd seen them on TV. And Rudy was the mayor in New York when Trump had a lot of action in New York. Mm-hmm. And so here's this guy, Rudy, who's ready to carry the torch and lead the parade. I think it was pure power grab and wanting to be relevant that brought Rudy Giuliani in. And by the way, money brought him in too, because everybody was getting rich off that Trump train.
Let's go to interest rates. Yep. Federal Reserve did it, raised its benchmark lending rate by 1/4 point today. Interest rates are now at their highest level in 22 years. Fed officials estimating one more rate hike this year.
I'm not happy about the rate hike either.
No.
Hey, get me on Giuliani and then on to the rate hike. I'm mad.
If you live in Fresno or you're passing through, you will be able to go to the world's largest Costco store. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The warehouse will cover more than 241,000 square feet in Northwest Fresno.
Albert, wouldn't you say there's never been anything like it?
Never. No.
There's never been anything like this.
Thank you.
According to a proposal released by the City of Fresno's Planning and Development Department, the new Costco is 3 miles from an already existing Costco.
Wow, that's great.
Been there since 1985, but sadly, it's only 134,000 square feet. That doesn't cut it. According to Costco, the number of customers in the area has outgrown the existing facility. So in addition to the warehouse, the new site will have a detached gas station, a tire center, and a car wash. A Costco car wash? What? I've never seen one of those before.
That
I've never
sounds
seen
cool.
anything like this. A Costco car wash? Come on. It'll include space for e-commerce fulfillment. The title of the largest Costco currently belongs to a warehouse in Salt Lake City, Utah. Move over, Utah. Fresno is coming for you. That's right.
Wow, that is pretty extraordinary. I mean, it's like the Starbucks that go up. If you go to New York City, there's a Starbucks. Then there's another, and in San Francisco too. It's right around the corner. This is sort of the same thing, only it's a massive undertaking to build a facility of that size.
Yeah, that's a big ass Costco.
And that's near Fresno. They ought to call it Big Ass Costco.
Big Ass Costco.
Well, it's near Fresno, you're saying.
It's in Fresno, as a matter of fact, Northwest Fresno. And I guess, I can see why maybe their population is growing, because it seems like places like Fresno are really the last affordable places to live in California. So everyone's probably flocking there and trying to buy their stuff at Costco.
Bob Komanek.
Oh, Bob. It is the Mark Thompson Show.
Let Kim speak. Why was I speaking over you or something, or what?
I don't think so. No, I don't know.
Oh, over the Giuliani thing? Why?
No.
Robert, that's what I do. What am I supposed to do? Just
no.
Robert.
My favorite part of the news is when you stop me and go for
Robert. Good How's stuff. That, Robert?
But thank you, Robert.
How dare you, Robert? How dare you?
I like you, Robert.
You're lucky I'm on remote in Washington, D.C., or I might put you in timeout, Robert. How dare telling me to shut up? How dare you? Who are these people, Albert? Outrageous.
Go to Costco and get a smoothie.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Exactly.
Yeah. The Mark Thompson Show, of course, crowdfunded. We're so grateful to you. You can find us on...
Maybe Robert is a crowdfunder, actually. If he's a Patreon. Robert, I want you to tell me right now, if you're a big Patreon supporter, I'm going to take everything back that I just said.
You should be a little nicer, okay?
Yeah, exactly. You can tell me to shut up all over again if you're a Patreon supporter.
We rely on you to fund the show, and so please find us at themarkthompsonshow.com, where we have the Patreon link and the PayPal link, and of course, as you've seen here on the show, the Super Chat is live. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Woohoo!
That's right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this?
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
How much does Joe Biden wish he had that Oprah drop of Oprah saying what when he's told the news that Hunter has now...
What?
Hunter's now pleading not guilty because the judge derailed the original plea deal. I mean, that was so done, and they are so over this Hunter thing. And now it's, Mr. President, we have something to tell you. Hunter is pleading not guilty because the judge isn't accepting the... So it's like the Hunter thing will not go away for Joe Biden. But that news, the Sinead O'Connor news today, and also that big news that we did in a hefty segment about the compromise associated with data, drone data in this country being stored on Chinese government-owned servers. Every bit of my being says, wow, how did that happen? So, did we hear from Robert? We didn't, did we? I wanted to put a button on that. Guy told me to shut up. No?
You've made him so sad. He's now giving you the crickets.
No.
My bad. I'm sorry.
There you go. I will remind you that we are crowdfunded, and you can find keys to, and I'll update the Kim thing in a minute, keys to supporting us. And some of you have really stepped up and increased your monthly support, which really helps because we've got to meet payroll every month, and it's a little bit of a nail biter. So you can find it all at the MarkThompsonShow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com. There's a bit of a distraction at the Mark Thompson Show. There it is. Wow.
It's such a nice website. It's really slick.
It was done by Kim's husband. They kind of did it in the dark of night. So I think under the circumstances, it is quite lovely. You can click through to contribute to our Patreon or help support us via PayPal. That's a great way to support. So I don't going to dwell on it, but if you haven't yet, maybe you can throw in a little monthly, helps us. I do want to mention Kim's show, which would start beginning August 1st right now. She would start immediately after our show on her own channel. And it's called The After Party Live. So now, is it called The After Party or is it called The After Party Live?
It's The After Party Live.
Okay. So you subscribe at theafterparty.live, and then you'd watch on, where would you watch it? On YouTube?
On YouTube, just like your show.
All right.
Yeah, right after you, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so because somebody was
sad. Well, a lot of people are sad when the Mark Thompson Show ends. So I just want to keep it going for a little bit.
That's good to hear. Yeah,
and
that's great.
If it's vacant hour, give the people what they want,
I see. Oh, good. Well, I love that you're going to keep the energy going.
That's right.
I'd be willing
anything else I need to see, Albert?
There's alcohol involved.
We're currently at 917 subscribers, and we have to get to 1,000 in order to go live. So please subscribe.
I told you you do well, and you get there no problem, and you will get there no
Thanks,
problem.
Thanks, Mark Thompson. It's all because of you.
I'm so, you know what, Kim? Now, I don't know when you're being facetious. Maybe John Daly, is he your co-host? John Daly is co-hosting with you?
Yeah.
Maybe John Daly can see through. I don't know anymore. You seem like you're full of cha-cha-cha and not, you seem like you're cha-cha-cha a lot. And you're not, I don't know whether you're being sincere. So it's
a little vim and vigor in you today, is what you got.
Yeah, it's true.
You need to take a little nap on the bed back
there. One more day from Washington, D.C., then Kim will be solo for Florida and Friday and all the other stuff that moves in. And then I'll be back on Monday. But I'll be back here tomorrow. In fact, we've got a big show tomorrow. Belinda on the cratering of the globe when it comes to It's the Planet Stupid. You've got David Katz on all the legal stuff, and he'll discuss Hunter and more tomorrow. So much to do.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim, thank you.
Love you.
Albert, thank you. Everyone, thank you. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.